afternoon. It's 29th of September 2021. We are in 6th lockdown in Melbourne. Today I have enough time to explain the letting out pants. It's about letting out the waist and sides down to the hip level. Okay, let's start before anyone comes in. We have sides of the waistband here, and we only have a little bit of the seam allowance inside there, as you can see, not too much, and there's nothing at the back. Otherwise we could do it around the back seam. There's not even seam there. That's why, and also there are top stitchings. As you can see, the top part and the bottom of the waistband, it's got the top stitching. We're going to repeat the same structure. First, I'm picking a section, not a big section, only that much, because for letting out we don't need to release too much of the fabric, too much of the waist. We can just do a bit, especially on the top level. From the bottom we release a bit more, like unpick about that much section. It's about 4 inches to get inside and to be able to work properly inside there. Let's unpick and then we can continue. As you can see, it's all done. I cut the tape here. There's a tape finish here. I'm not going to extend the tape, and I'll just fold it in and then finish it when I finish the letting out, because adding the tape, it will add more, like make the job a bit costly, which customer doesn't like. So we can talk about that with customer, just to come to the agreement. These are little details, but they will make the job a bit much more expensive than if you don't add the tape. So we got about, we can let out about 1/2 inch from each side. So we're gonna end up with hopefully 1 inch or 3/4 inch on the waist, and the sides down to the hips. They will give us around the same or a bit less. It's a bit less fabric here, about 1.5 centimeters on each side. Next thing we're gonna do is stitch it around to the edge as close as possible, but without compromising the quality, the strength of the stitching. Just keep 2 millimeters a bit from the edge. We're ready to machine now, but I want to explain how the top and the bottom threads are done. So the top is normal single thread. The bobbin, as usual, it should be double. Let's do the job now. The length of the stitching should be around 3, 2.5, but 3 is better. These 2 layers are done. Now we're gonna unpick the old stitching. See how much we have? It's about 3/4 inch, about 2 centimeters already there. Okay, the same is going to happen with the other layer. I'm doing the old stitching again, and then we're going to press it and then do the join again, which is the top of the waist, to create the same structure. The waist part is finished. Let's talk about the body. So this is the join where the body joins to the waist. Top of the part of that part should be adjusted to the base wherever the waist is. So we have to stay around the same level, around the same amount on the let out here. So I think we're gonna just stitch around along the overlogging there, and then go to approximately 2, nothing around the just below the waist. What I'm gonna do, I don't need to draw do any measurements in this case, because we're gonna just follow the line, the overlooking line. The only thing I want to mark, it's the level. Just put pins or mark with the chalk this amount. We're gonna stay around that area and finish it about the same level. That's the only thing we have to keep an eye on. So that one and the other one. So your seam should be finished to nothing around here, around there. The stitching is done already, letting out, and I also unpicked the old stitching over here. You can see the outside seam, how it looks like. We definitely have half an inch here, but on the waistband level we have 1.5 centimeters, which is enough. For the total it makes 3 centimeters around the top of the waist. I think that's enough for her now. The next step is going to be pressing it out, all the seams nicely. We have a bit of seam, the mark showing here from the old seam, but we can just clean it and brush it a bit and see how it looks like. Should be fine. She was kind of expecting this type of finish. Just back from pressing, that's how it looks like from outside. Side seam and the waistband. Still showing a bit of holes, hole marks. You can't help this. Yeah, it's going to be a bit faded line around there, but it will fade a bit more after a couple of dry cleanings. Now what's left is joining, redoing this join and doing the top stitching as it was as original, just continuing these seams along there and on the top level around here. At the beginning of this video, I told you I'm going to leave these sections undone because the customer is happy with this finish. But I just happen to have these pieces in my drawer, this bit bias tape in my drawers. So I decided to cover it using these pieces. It's not necessary. You can leave it like that, or you can even overlook it. But once I have them, why not to put it? You know, doesn't have to take too much time for me anyway. And that's a good color. So. Yeah, it's a bit shiny comparing to that, but it inside doesn't hurt. Inside a bit shiny tape. It looks a bit too shiny on the video actually. It's not that shiny here. She will probably be happy with this. We're finished with the top stitchings there, and we let out 2 centimeters on each side on the waistband and went down to nothing around the bottom of the hips. While we're pressing the seams out, I wanted to show you how to do the pressing of very thin layers. It's a bit complicated sometimes, it's a bit hard to get there. So let's say this one, how are you going to press it out? Not table thin enough to get through that section. I take the ruler and put it along that tiny part, and this iron is very high temperature steam. We're going to like flatten it out, separating the lines. I want them to be opened, pressed open. And just remove your hands, your fingers, you don't want to burn yourself, and put the iron on the ruler. See how it is? And it presses it flat. Then when it's already pressed a bit, we can even do the steaming. I want to show that steaming on the ruler, not on your fingers. So you'll see the finished look now. Sides on these pocket pans, laid out for about 2 centimeters on each side. This is the case when it was almost impossible. There was almost nothing there, but we still able to lay it out for about 3 centimeters in total, even more than 3 on 2 sides, and going down to the hips, bottom of the hips, down this level. I hope it was more or less educational, so you can do something like that for yourself. Next is going to be, I think she has some shortening of dress as well. I'll start looking at that one in a second. Next one is this skirt. You can see that it's maxi, I think maxi skirt, and it's got really defined, really wide hem here. Hopefully you can see that. That's the hem. That's the hem. You can see it. All right, I'll show you in a second. That's the hem. We're gonna do shortening with this type of finish, which is really wide hem. It's about just 15 centimeters wide, and the customer wants them to be done with similar finish. We could actually potentially undo all this machining and then shortening the same way, just folding twice and shortening. There's another shortcut to this one, especially for lightweight fabrics, which is this one, like this one. It's very fine cotton fabric. Can you see that? It's got layered finish, layered structure. 1, 2, I think 3 layers, and with the wide hem at the bottom. With this type of lightweight skirt, I think it's gonna improve the drape of the skirt. If the hem is done a bit heavier, it comes. So she pinned that already. It's about more than 12 centimeters to shorten. We can do that shortening the second way I already mentioned about, doing the 12 centimeters from the inside, like folding up and then keeping the original hem there. We're going to end up with a seam machining here to join the original hem back to the body, and neatly cut and overlock this excess fabric here. So how are you going to go with that? Just measure from this line to the end of the fold, should be about 6 centimeters. 6 centimeters, that much. And then go around along this seam, which is the current joint between the hem, there's no joint, but between hem and the body. And on the other side, which is the right side, we're going to end up with the seam along the hem and the body, which is really unnoticeable. And then we're going to finish it with the overlooking along this edge. Okay, let's start it, and then I'll explain step by step. One way of doing it is just pressing along that line, just measuring 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, and pressing, and then going along this. Because it's pressed already, just put a couple of pins this way across and just go around with the machining along this line without doing extra measurements. That's a quicker way of doing it. I'll press it and then we'll come back to that. it's marked, it's pressed. Now it's time to show you. Here you are, that's a pressed line, flat, pressed. This is 6 centimeters along this seam, and there are pins across here, like every 10 centimeters, 20 centimeters across like that. So when we put it under the machine, we're going to put it like this and go machine along this line. Here is the look. With the original hem, that wide. You can't see the width, but the seam is right there. We kept the look. Yeah. It's finished for today. Hope you enjoyed this, and check the site, check my website as well, ozal.com.au. I got lots of educational videos there, and more of this type of random alterations are coming.